Okay, let's get started. Okay, today we will discuss code design criteria. So this covers antenna switching, right? And then antenna switching either with either basically TDMA or OFDM, it doesn't really matter. Then OFDM with frequency division and OFDM with delay diversity, that is time shifting, delay diversity, and fourth is the TDMA or OFDM with phase offset, or we call it what, and frequency offset, frequency shifting, right? Frequency shifting. This is time shifting. For all these cases, we'll come up with a universal design criteria, okay, for the code, for the channel code. Okay? Sort of you can view it as a space-time coding. That is, there is a channel code, and then you distribute the symbols on different antennas, and you have to design. You have to make sure that it gives you a certain diversity order for a given code. Okay. So what we will do is to start with this. Everything else sort of follows because they are very, very similar. Okay. To start with the antenna switching as an example, or OFDM with frequency being an example. Here the channel is flat. If it is frequency selective, you can easily extend this. Flat. Relay. Steady. Channel is flat. That makes things simpler. And we will begin with antenna switching as a first example. Okay. Then we will discuss the other cases. Okay. Let's build some notation here. Okay. So we will consider how many antennas? M antennas. Most general case of M antennas, and we don't bring the code rate into picture as of now. Okay, that's not essential. It's just a coded block without bit rate. Okay, so the received signal, as usual, we call it YK before, but we'll change the notation a bit here, but that shouldn't cause any confusion. Or F comma N. We have two notations here that I'll explain in a moment. F stands for the number of antennas, 1, 2 up till M antennas. Okay, the received signal at the F corresponding to F antenna, because you switch between antennas, right? Okay, so now we will not switch consecutively, but we will switch in blocks. That is, you remain on one antenna for some time and then switch. Okay? In a simulation, you switch consecutively, but on the other hand, you could remain on one antenna for a time period and then switch. It's like clockwise switching. So that n stands for 0, 1 up till some n minus 1 data symbols. And totally how many data symbols we are considering? M into n data symbols. That is the length of the data block. In this m into n symbols, there are m distinct channels because we are going to switch that many times. Okay? Pictorially, you are going to stay on this antenna for so many symbols. That is, so I'll write this alpha f is the fading state, square root of Es is the energy, the coded symbol is Cf, comma n plus additive white Gaussian noise Z f comma n. What is this? No? Oh, we don't have bits here. When we make it very general, it's a complex number. It's a called modulation alphabet. Modulation alphabet. That means you coded them and modulated them. So we don't care how it is obtained. All we see here is complex numbers. There could be binary, they could be taking plus or minus 1, or they could be coming from QPSK constellation, or they could be coming from MRA quantum constellation. So we give the most general treatment here. Okay? And we can derive the special cases for binary modulation. So here in this time block, its fading state is, so these many data symbols will lie on fading state alpha 1, then you switch to the next one, alpha 2, and so on so forth. Well, you could make this one data symbol if you wish, but for the time being, we'll keep it. Receiver. It's not receiver, this is the system model. This is how we are going to transmit. This is not receiver, this is the received signal, but this is what has been transmitted.
Code rate is less than 1 by n. Code rate is less.
There is no code rate here. It just, we don't talk about code. These are coded symbols by some means. But this is output of the code. So there is binary data, then there is encoding. Encoder gives C f comma n, something comes in binary data.
But so last time encoding and modulation.
Encoding and modulation will combine.
So last time you obtained diversity because of coding.
Yeah, there will also be coding here. This is the coded data C.
In last time and change consecutively.
Right.
Diversity came in picture because there was coding. Yes,
Of
half
course.
rate coding.
Yeah.
But here if code rate is less.
This is the rate. Well, what is the transmission rate? R bits per symbol, some capital R. And modulation size is, well, the cardinality of C. Modulation size is cardinality of at the modulation size. And how many bits are packed? Well, logarithm of that cardinality base 2. Okay. Now we are transmitting at a rate R. There is coding and modulation which is combined here. If you want to decouple it, you can code it and then you can do bits to symbol mapping, which is what we did. That's a special case of, that's one particular type of encoding. But this is a more general case. Okay. So now there is coding involved, there is modulation involved. We don't have to worry about how it is accomplished as of now. But we know that there is coding involved. Okay. We don't talk about the code rate as of now. Fine? Okay. So now let's proceed. Okay, this is usual AWGN, complex normal, zero mean variance and none. Okay. So our aim is at the receiver. This is coded, transmitted, received. Now what is our aim? Our goal is to recover this. Rather, well, our aim is actually to recover the binary source, but if you know, you can trace them back. You know exactly. Okay. So what do you need to do at the receiver? Any idea? What do you need to do? Have the received signal. What do you need to do? Decode. And what is input to the decoder? There are no LLRs here. Okay. That's one particular way of doing it. Input is RFN and the whole block F ranging from 1 to M and N ranging from 0 to N minus 1. All these samples are given to the decoder and the decoder should make decision with an ML decoder. Okay? It will decode the transmitted data. One frame at a time. What we decoders do.
So
they decode one frame at a time.
The choice of decoder shouldn't be depend on
Yeah, it will depend everything. Okay.
app or ML.
Yeah, we'll use ML. Okay. In the absence of any a priori, we'll use ML.
So what is the modulation?
Well, it could be asymmetric, but we decode symbols in it. They're all equally likely.
Yeah, we are assuming that they're equally likely. That means the modulation that we choose is similar.
For those little details for the time being. Okay. Okay. So you can come up with any number of metrics. That's not a problem. Okay. So now, assuming that receiver knows the alphas perfectly, then the receiver knows the alphas perfectly. An appropriate metric is we decide in favor of we will transmit a code word which is the sequence C. Code word is the sequence C, and then we decide in favor of a code C hat. The C hat is given by the argument that minimizes the Euclidean distance over all feasible code words plus. Okay, so there are a permissible set of code words, right? If you encode the data using a given code, there are set of permissible code words. Okay, so you know that set. Let's say you have in the code book. You can do exhaustive if you want. Okay. There are a set of permissible code words. In the brute force case, if the cardinality of the modulation is, let us say, q, then there are q raised to, well, whatever that big number, m into n, feasible combinations of. But that's not, there may not be all permissible code words, but at least that's what the brute force says. Okay? Of course, you don't want to do that, but anyway, maximum likelihood can decode in that particular manner. That's one way of doing it. For example, in the convolutional code, you could probably have searched over all feasible code words. You could have minimized the distance, but we employed the so-called Witherby algorithm to reduce the complexity of decode. Okay? This is the metric for decoding. Okay? And alphas As usual, we'll assume complex normal. Alpha Fn is there, right? Alpha Fn is there. Alpha F, okay. It's not a function of n, alpha F. Alpha F's are distributed as complex normal, zero mean, variance, unity for, and they are IID over F. Right? Alpha F for IID, complex normal, zero mean, variance. That was the fading states.
What is capital F in the first summation?
Okay, that's not F, but okay. We'll range it from 1 to M. Not F, but we'll range it to M antennas. Okay? F equal to 1 to M antennas. Okay? This you can take it out if you want, but let's keep it. Range of summation. If you switch consecutively, that doesn't appear. But if you do blockwise switching, then you have summation over all feasible. What is this? I mean, this is the sum of Euclidean distances of piece by piece. Right? Euclidean distance over M into N received samples.
Decoding one frame, right?
This is one frame decoding.
We are taking decision over entire one frame.
Yeah, we're going to decode one frame.
So one frame consists of only n symbols.
Capital N. Capital N. That look at the
There are m frames with each containing
M, not M frames. M subframes. Okay? M subframes. Each subframe has N symbols. So total how many you have? M into N symbols in a frame. So we're going to decode the entire frame. M. Okay? Yeah, this is just a hypothetical. Alpha remains constant in one subplane. That's the usual assumption because of low Doppler. So we assume low Doppler and over the duration of the subframe, alpha remains constant. Well, that's kind of well understood. Okay. Okay, and in fact, if you want, you could have put an interleaver here and then a de-interleaver at the receiver, but we can ignore it for the time being. Okay? Ignore it for the time. We'll discuss the role of the interleaver later. For the time being, we can leave it like this. Okay, we'll introduce the notion of what is called pairwise error probability. Okay, this is probably the most important concept that you have to observe. Pairwise error probability. Okay? How do you define this? Well, you take any two arbitrary code words, coded sequence. Okay? A code word is one particular code sequence. You take any two particular code words. In fact, one of them you can consider them without loss of generality as all zero code words. One of them could be all zero code word. Then you can choose any other code word as the second code. But in any case, we'll start with the probability of error, the pairwise probability of error. So let us say C of A has been transmitted. The code word A has been transmitted, and then you decide in favor of C of B. Then the frame is in error, right? Transmit a code word C of A, and then the receiver decides in favor of CB. So basically, you transmit +1, the receiver decides in favor of -1, then there is an error. If it decides in favor of plus 1, there's no error event. So you don't want to consider that scenario. And vice versa. You transmit minus 1 and you decide in favor of plus 1. But for the time being, we just consider two code words. You transmit C of A and decide in favor of C of B given the channel states alpha F. Alpha F is known to the receiver. Perfect. There is no randomness in the channel. Alpha F as far as the decoding process is concerned. Decoder alphas are fixed. Okay, that is equal to Q function square root of j equal to 0 to or 1 to m minus 1, 1 to m alpha f square f a comma b s divided by 2 times n naught. Okay, you can easily relate this for BPSK case, which you know, right? That this is f equal to 1 to m. Okay, shall I erase this? Okay, just take a moment and see that expression, and where d square f a comma b, okay, well, it's a measure of distance. The measure of distance that is equal to summation n equal to 0 to n minus 1 c f comma n of a minus c f comma n of b absolute value square. So what is that? Yeah, it's sort of Hamming distance, but actually it is Euclidean distance. Okay, but you can relate it to Hamming distance if C is binary. When C is binary, it is indeed the Hamming distance, but so you can view it as a Hamming or Euclidean distance, but I'll write down what it is. What it is that is the Euclidean distance between portions of the two code words residing in this block F. We're just measuring for each block, and then we're summing it for later for all the blocks. Two code words residing in block F. Okay, so this is the Euclidean distance for block F, and then for each block F equal to 1 to m, sum these up with corresponding alpha F square. But why is that? Why do you get this? Can you relate to this? Yeah,
Probability of
yeah. This part is understood, right? This is the tail probability from the Q function that you have done for simple uncoded case. Okay. But this one,
dated distance.
what does this mean? An error occurs when the C of Fn, shall I put C hat here or something like that perhaps? Okay, that's more meaningful because this itself is defined as, what is Rfn? Square root of Es alpha F C of Fn. So take f equal to 1. Okay. You count the number of positions in which C hat Fn differs from C Fn. Okay. So we are considering the distance right now. Okay. Distance between the code words. That's been taken care here. Okay. We're just considering the distance here. So you count the number of positions where the transmitted code word differs from the code word that you have decided.
FPR expression.
Okay. So now, wherever they differ, it contributes to the minimum distance. If CFN A is equal to CFN B, there is nothing to contribute. So we say that the received block is in error, at least in one position they differ. What is the position we are talking about? Position n equal to 0 to n minus 1. So at least in one position, the received code word differs from the transmitted code word, and then we measure the distance, Euclidean distance between those two points, those 2 points. Okay, and since alpha f is the same for the entire block f, add all those distances wherever they differ, and then you multiply it with alpha f square. Okay, because Fn minus square root of Es alpha f C hat Fn, so you can take square root of Es alpha f Cfn minus C hat Fn, and then the whole absolute value square. That is what the distance is all about. So when you square up, alpha f square comes in, and then you accumulate these distances over the positions the code words differ. Okay? Make sense?
Yeah.
So you accumulate it for the state f, and that is this total distance multiplied by with alpha f square, and then for f equal to 2, 3, 4, to again carry this out for the given code word CFA and CFB, and in the end you will end up with the Q function, which is summation. Okay, that's what you do. It doesn't mean that this D F square F A B is non-zero. You have to design the code such that, not saying guaranteeing anything at this point, there are two arbitrary code words CA and CB for which formulate this expression. Okay, we haven't talked about the code, right? We haven't talked about how to construct these codes. Given a code word CA, given two code words CA and CB, this is the pairwise probability of error in deciding in favor of CB, given that CA is trans. That's all.
Entire MN symbol. Oh, no.
This is for the entire block.
MN. So
Yeah.
this is exactly FPR, right?
This is not FER. This is the pairwise error probability. Given CA is transmitted, CB is, you decide in favor of CB. This is the pairwise error probability. Now there are many such events, right? There are many events where how many pairs are there? There are a number of pairs, and we choose one pair that gives you the least distance that will dominate the probability of error. Which one dominates? The one which is giving the highest distance will not dominate, because if you calculate the union bound would be summation over all feasible A comma B, and then which term dominates? The set of error events that corresponds to the minimum distance will dominate the union bound. Therefore, you can say that you consider the minimum distance error event. You first figure out what is the minimum distance error event. That how do you figure that out? you know the code words, all feasible code words. You figure out which code word, which pair of code words gives you the minimum distance. Error event. It may not be one pair, there could be multiple pairs, but let's assume that there is one pair that gives you the minimum distance. And that is the one that dictates the frame error rate. So this is a measure of frame error rate because in the union bound we are collecting the dominant count.
That frame is more prone to error.
Well, that is the frame error rate. That is the probability of decoding the frame in error. It just takes BPSK transmission. You try send +1. You calculate what is the probability of deciding in favor of -1. That is the error rate. That's all you are interested in. What is the minimum distance error event? Well, you send 1. You decode in favor of -1. That is the minimum error event. Let's take 8 PSK. What is the minimum distance error event? Okay, how do you decide the pairwise error probability for 8 PSK? Can you tell me now? Without loss of generality, assume that 0 is transmitted. Doesn't matter, right? Because the translation is symmetric. That's what you are asking about if it's not symmetric. Let's not worry about it now. Without loss of generality, from 8 PSK translation, we assume 0 is transmitted. What is the probability of error? Well, a measure of probability of error for 8 PSK, symbol error. Q of square root of, let's assume no fading here. What is the minimum distance? Well, the translation C0 minus either C1 or C7, one of them. That's it, right? Does it make sense? This is the symbol error rate for 8 PSK. Well, is it the exact error rate? No. Because how many error events are there? Well, there are at least 7 error events are there. If 0 is transmitted, there are 7 feasible. So you have to take the sum of the union bound over all possible events. But we know that this is the one that dominates. That should be a measure of. For any modulation, you can calculate the uncoded error rate by calculating the minimum distance between the translation. Well, that's a coarse measure of error rate. Do you agree? Have we done error rate analysis for 8 PSK? Don't have to do the exact one. This is true for. So what is the, you take the constellation, find out the minimum distance of the constellation. That gives you a measure of error rate. That's exactly what we are doing for a sequence. We are doing exactly the same for a coded sequence, where the elements of the code words are modulation symbols. It's exactly the same, no difference. Decided in favor of CB. Yeah, it's decided in favor of the entire sequence CB, and if CA and CB differ in at least one, in any position, at least one position, then we decide this frame is in error. Okay? I mean, it takes a bit of time to get used to this notion, but this notion of pairwise error probability is very important in coding theory, right? Both in space-time coding and classical coding. Okay, now, well, from here onwards, life is much simpler. That is, what is the design criteria? You tell me. What is the design criteria to get full diversity? Look at this and tell me, how should we design the code so that we achieve full diversity and maximum coding gain? That is the question. That you should be able to answer right from here. You don't have to do much more manipulation. Okay? From that design criteria, you can construct the codes. That is just.
There should be many.
Well, I have two goals here. One is, I want a target diversity order. I want to ensure the system gives target, diversity, order. What is my target? Well, it could be anywhere from 1 to m. And I want to maximize the coding gain. Maximize the coding gain. Okay, let's take an AWGN channel first. Okay.
So ideally, basically, all M blocks of your code should be different from each other. I mean, there shouldn't be any two code words where particular block of M.
They should differ in at least one position.
No, at least one position.
At least one position.
Alpha M will multiply.
Then the weight will be at least one.
Correct.
Or not one, but in Hamming sense, it is at least one. Okay, that is the criteria for full diversity.
In each block.
Each block, there should be at least one position in which these symbols should differ. That's how we should construct it. But that is not obeyed, then you get a diversity order less than m, because some of these elements, these will be 0. Okay, that's the first one. That's kind of obvious, right, from here. At least one in a coding block with fading state f, that summation should be non-zero in at least one position. One position. Okay? Okay? That makes sense. That doesn't mean that you maximize the coding gain, because you don't want to have a situation where, let's take m equal to 2, you don't want alpha f square to have a weight 1 for f equal to 1 and a weight 10 for f equal to 2. Okay, in other words, for m equal to 2, you don't want to construct a code where you see alpha 1 square multiplied with the corresponding Hamming weight, well, sort of Hamming and Euclidean are synonymous here, because in one, I'm saying that one position they differ, but there may be some distance associated with it. Let's say 1 d square plus alpha 2 square multiplied by 10 d square, where d square is, or something like that. But I don't want to have such a large imbalance between the weights of the fading states. So you tell me what should be the criteria. Should be equal. When they are equal, this 5d square, 5d square. So I want the total distance in this block, total block, should be equally split between the fading states, 1 and 2 in the case of 2 antennas. If I have m antennas, it should be equally distributed between. The criteria is df square AB should be as equal as possible for all f's. They should be as equal as possible. Well, what do you mean by as equal as possible?
Independent of it.
So that means the product distance, the geometric mean, should be maximized. I'll show that in a minute. If you have sequencer number, if you want them to be as equal as possible, the geometric mean should be
Equal to arithmetic.
well, the geometric mean should be equal to the arithmetic mean. And they are as equal as possible. That means they are all equal. Okay, that means the geometric mean should be as close to the arithmetic mean. That's what it means. Okay, that we will derive mathematically in a moment, but it's obvious, right, more or less from looking at here. What I will do now is that I will carry out, I will uncondition with respect to alpha f and derive the so-called diversity order, but it's not really necessary. From here you can see it right away. When these are all equal, it becomes maximal ratio combining of m antennas, pseudo maximal ratio combining. The decoder is offering maximal ratio combining. There are no multiple antennas at the receiver. They're all residing at the transmitter. We're relying on coding to get this artificial maximal ratio combining. Okay, so you yourself answered the design criteria. Okay, target diversity order. Well, I could have m, I could have m minus 1, m minus 2, whatever is the target. You set yourself a target and you get that much diversity order. And then you make sure these are as equal as possible. That's not the only criteria, but the total sum of these distances should be also maximized. We said they are as equal as possible, but at the same time, the free Euclidean distance, what is free Euclidean distance? Without this alpha square, this sum. The free Euclidean distance is, you take this out, as if it is an AWGN, the sum of Euclidean distances should be maximized for the minimum distance error event. It should be maximized for the minimum distance error event. df ab square, still you want to maximize this over f equal to 1, you maximize this for the minimum distance error event. Okay, you maximize the minimum of that several distances. Maximize the minimum of a set of numbers. So this is the minimum distance error event, and you want this number to be maximum because you want this coding gain to be maximum. So if it is AWGN, we don't have this term. What is the criteria for maximize the coding gain? Well, maximize the free distance. What is free distance? Free distance is either the Hamming distance or the Euclidean distance. But Euclidean distance is much more general than Hamming distance because we are dealing with complex constellations. Okay, if they are binary, it comes Euclidean distance will become Hamming distance.
What is the upper limit of it?
There is no limit. Well, the limit is really something to do with the code. For convolutional codes, you keep on increasing the constraint length, the free distance keeps on increasing. But of course, it slows. The increase slows down after that.
10 times
Okay.
maximum number.
What is it?
Ultimately, 10 times maximum number because other number can be 0.
There.
The difference can be,
This one.
the other number can be 0.
Yeah. You see, point is
The 10
The-
times
the-
maximum number is 0.
for a code, for a given code, the free Euclidean distance, that is without the fading state, you want to maximize this, right? And then you want to distribute this as equally as possible between the fading states. So you should start with first maximizing with this, then make sure that it is split as equally as possible between all the fading states. And then at the same time, you want to make sure that you see at least one non-zero entity in a given non-zero distance in a given fading block. You have to satisfy these three things. That's Ciccone constructor code. But I am not going to tell you how to construct the code. Okay, this is just the design criteria.
Diversity at m minus 2 can have 2 0.
Yeah, yeah. If you want diversity orders less than m,
Can have 2 0.
see what happens is that ultimately the code rate plays a role. Which right now we are not discussing the code rate. This is all very wishful thinking here, right? This is really wishful thinking because without bringing the code rate into the picture, we're talking about designing the code. So ultimately, you have to start with the code rate. First, fix the code rate, fix the modulation, and then start satisfying these. But we already said there is so-called singleton bound, which we have to bring into picture. Which without proof, I'm going to state the singleton bound. That completes the entire discussion. That is, we have a design criteria for the code, and then we have a fundamental bound, which gives you a trade-off between code rate and diversity order. No matter how you design this code, it cannot beat the singleton bound. Okay, which I have stated formally. Okay, because we don't want to get into a lot of coding theory here, but it's good enough to know the design criteria, the singleton bound, and take classical convolutional codes, just simulate them. So you can get the entire picture. Okay, so now we defined the rate R, right? In the very beginning, capital R. Did we? Rate of transmission. What is rate of transmission? Number of bits per symbol. R is the total rate of transmission. Units is bits per the complex symbol we are transmitting. Right? There is no ambiguity in it. You know exactly how many bits per symbol you are transmitting. Okay. That's because you know the input sequence and then there is coded modulation. I'll write the diagram. So So I have n into m coded symbols. Okay, in one frame, n into m coded symbols, and then I have n into m multiplied by r. Okay, information symbols. So the rate of transmission is equal to n into m into r divided by n into m. That is the rate of transmission. So this is the building block. For rate of code, one input bit, two output bits, and then you do BPSK mapping. That's what you have implemented. But this is more general coded modulation. I can have any modulation order also. Okay, and what is the modulation size I am considering? The modulation size is the cardinality of C of Fn, and let's call it S. The modulation order is okay. S is the modulation order. Okay.
R will always be, I mean, output bits will be always more than input bits.
In this case,
yeah, that's what. Why do they always say rate is half and output bits are more?
well, rate is total number of input bits divided by total number of output bits. The total number of input bits, N, M, R. This bits per dimension. I'll just call it. Okay. In each symbol, we send in each epoch, we send one complex valued modulation alphabet, which carries logarithm of S base 2 bits, right? How many bits it carries? It carries logarithm of S base 2 bits in one time epoch or whatever the unit of transmission. Okay? So now singleton bound says that the target diversity order DH is always less than or equal to 1 plus m multiplied by 1 minus r divided by log s base 2. Cannot beat this. No matter what the code is, no matter how you construct it, whatever the criteria you use, you cannot beat this bound. The diversity order, why we put H? Well, H actually starts for Hamming. That's because these are sort of Hamming rates. Anyway, just a notation. Okay, DH is the diversity order. Okay, given the code rate, modulation size, given the rate and the modulation size, you cannot beat. Okay, what is the total rate of transmission? This is up till here. Total rate of transmission is R into largest base. So if you think of this as only coding, think of this as only coding like a rate half code, and then if you do bits to symbol mapping, 8 PSK, what will be the overall transmission rate? This rate, small r into log s to the base 2. This is the capital R. So now you can replace this with small r if you wish for the bit interleaved coded modulation. Okay.
Capital R is basically small log s to the base 2. Basically, so they are containing only the coding rate. One minus just pure code rate.
You can think of an effective code rate.
It's pure code rate, right? Without involving modulation.
See, that's the thing now. There is no such thing as separate modulation and coding. That's only for our convenience we created modulation and coding separately. But you could have always viewed them as a modulation is part of coding in itself. Then this is the effective rate. R is the transmission rate. R is the transmission rate, and if you divide it by log s base 2, it sort of gives you, well, in our view, the code rate. You want to separate it out like that. R is the transmission rate. So if you choose R as small r log s base 2, then small r becomes sort of this code rate. But if you build a modulation as part of it, then it becomes sort of capital R effect. Now it's really up to you. See, the thing is, now if you really observe this, even constellation plays a role in dictating the diversity order. So you can always expand the constellation and create an effective low rate code. If you fix this and increase the constellation size, you can increase the diversity order. That makes sense? You can always increase the constellation size, and keep this outer code rate fixed in a bit interleaved code modulation. Let's redraw it. Okay, now we'll remove this. Think of it as a channel code, conventional channel code, and then bits to symbol mapping. Okay, now we get modulation symbols of size S here. Now this rate is small r, right? Okay. Take the singleton bound. One way of increasing the diversity order is you can make this you can increase S. Okay, you can increase S and try to get more and more diversity. But if you increase S, that doesn't come for free. What happens when you increase S?
Coding gain.
Coding gain will be reduced because the Euclidean distance becomes smaller and smaller, because higher the constellation, closer the points, so you increase the error rate. You can increase the diversity order, but it becomes counterproductive of beyond QPSK, it sort of becomes counterproductive. So what we do is, we design a classical channel code. There is bits to symbol mapping. You can choose any modulation size you want based on the system requirements. We'll completely leave out the choice of the modulation. See? other issue, system requirement, we control the small r and see the trade-off between diversity order and code rate. So can you see that now the diversity order is completely independent of the modulation? Can you see that? It only depends on the code rate. So in a bit interleaved coded modulation system, what is a bit interleaved coded modulation? Modulation and coding are separated. Coding, bit to symbol mapping, and view this as an effective binary channel. That is, when you demodulate, what you get are log likelihood ratios. They are effective binary channels. So in the decoder, soft demod, and then decode. So it gives you LLRs, which are effective binary channels. The entire design is based on binary codes. Now, this is the code rate R. This is the number of antennas. Now we play with the channel code design and you play with the diversity order code rate radar. Okay? So we leave out the modulation from the picture completely because you don't want to do that. That leads to a different type of code design altogether. Okay? That belongs to a class of trellis code modulation and other things. Okay? And which is usually not used in mobile radio channels. Satellite communication uses trellis code modulation. There is no fading, much of fading. So for our purpose, we'll deal with conventional turbo codes, LDPC codes, convolutional codes, block codes of given rate R, bit to symbol mapping. That sort of takes several bits into a complex symbol, and you do a soft demodulation, symbol to bits, and now you got a set of binary inputs to the decoder, and now you worry about the diversity order offered by this decoder and encoder. So now you relate it back to what you have done, that you have a rate half code and you add antenna switching and you needed at least rate, right? The maximum code rate needed was rate half to get full diversity. Now you increase the value of the number of antennas and you play with the rate to get the desired diversity that you can do. And you can't beat this. So you can check, you take a set of code rates to figure out this diversity order, code rate trade-off. Then you go and take convolutional codes and plug it in and simulate and see what you get. Then you may say, wow, these convolutional codes are not designed for these criteria. Maybe we are missing out something there. Let me ask, right? The convolutional codes, you have taken them out from the book, which are not designed for this criteria. But it turns out that it is immaterial. The reason is that when you maximize the total Hamming distance or the Euclidean distance, which is, let us say, 10, usually convolution code, what is the maximum free distance? It's usually 10, at least 20 actually, depends on the constraint length. It is usually on the order of 20. So there are at least 20 positions where the all zero code word differs from the first error event code word. Okay. So if there are 20 positions where you're going to differ, then you can sort of make sure that your diversity order is 2, at least in 2 positions you see a different fade. That's not too difficult, right? But no matter how you construct the code, at least 2 positions where the code words will differ. So I will illustrate that using a GSM code. Now you can work it out. So this guy, Raymond Nook, he has done his PhD thesis. He wanted to beat this GSM code, which was sort of designed by hand. Okay, somebody designed a GSM system, and he did this entire thesis to figure out if he can get a better code. He constructed a number of codes, right? So it turned out that he couldn't beat it. The reason is quite simple. You maximize this. That's good enough. It takes care of it. If it is very, very large, you'll see a few positions where the fading states will differ. That's good enough for the most part. Okay, and there's no reason why you should really go and optimize these codes. Futile. I think hundreds of papers have appeared, but I don't think they led to anything really better than off-the-shelf codes. Codes designed for AWDN channels, they work as well for fading channels. For the most part. Any code doesn't matter, turbo, LDPC, convolutional, as long as they have high D free, that does the job. Okay. Only when things will get complicated, if the D free is like say 3 or 4, and if your diversity order is 2, then you have to delete it there. Okay. But usually we don't do that. Okay. So let's take a GSM rate half code, and you work it out and tell me the diversity order from the trellis diagram. That's not too difficult. So this is rate half GSM code. This is for the it's part of the speed channel, and then there is effective binary modulation, some sort of BPSK. Okay, we are interested in this part. The D free for this code is 7. That is, there are at least 7 positions where the all zero code word differs from the first event error. But the number of states for this code is 2 raised to 4. That is constraint length 5. Constraint length 5 code. I'll give you the okay. The state 0 0 0 0, right? Shift register 4 elements. So you start with this, okay, and then we construct an all zero error event. Well, what does this mean? It's a zeroth state. That's all it means. I put 4 elements there because in the shift register there are 4 elements for the convolutional code. I think in simulation you have taken from the convolutional code memory. 3. I'm taking 4. Okay. Memory is 4. 4 here. Okay. So a 0. What is 0? The source bit 0 gives you a coded bit. Well, it's an all zero code word. It always gives you 0 0. A 0 here gives you 0 0. A 0 here gives you 0 0. A 0 here gives you 0. What are these zeros? This is CF of A, which is the all zero error event. A is taken as all zero error event. Okay, they're all zeros. They'll be mapped to either +1 or -1. Now, well, when does an error occur? You are at a given state. Okay, you decide instead of 0, you decide in favor of 1 at some point in the trellis. Okay, so if you decide in favor of a 1, the corresponding code word is here. It turns out to be 1 1 for this particular channel code. 1 1. What is 1 1 here? Well, that is the code word sequence 0 0 0 0. Then 1 1 will go on now. So a single error, well, leads to, well, not 2 bit. You have a diverged here from the trellis. It has to remerge back at some point, and this is called minimum distance error event. This one is called minimum distance error event. And we read the labels corresponding to the code words on this minimum distance error event. Okay? So the state here is 1 0 0 0. We don't care about the state as such. But again a 0, because we said we're going to make a single error. Therefore, a 0, we made an error here 1, and then we're not going to make another error. A 0 leads to, from this state, a 0 leads to 0 1. Okay, how you may say, how did you get this? Well, that's how the code was designed. I'm just giving you the error event, first error event description here. Okay, and the next state is 0 1 0 0, because it kind of goes through the shift register, right? 1 comes here, and now again a 0 gives you here 0 Well, in this case, it's 0, 0. That's output. Why? I mean, it just depends on the characteristics of shift register. I didn't even define it, okay? Then 0, 0, 1, 0 is the next state. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Oh, there is one more here. A 0 here leads to, well, 1, 1 here. That's how the code was designed. Okay. Now, the next state is 0, 0, 0, 1. That's the shift register. And then it gets flushed out next time and it goes back to the original state. And that gives a 0 gives you 1, 1. Okay. Now, I will call this C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, C7, C8, C9, C10. I'm just labeling the transmitted code word as C1 to C10. That is the transmitted code word, which is all 0 code word. And we decide in favor of, let's say, C1 hat, C2 hat, C3 hat, C4 hat, C5 hat, C6 hat, C7 hat, C8 hat, C9 hat, C10 hat. So basically this is CA and CB, two code words. Okay, now what are the antenna fading states? Okay, now you can assign any M you want. Number of antennas. So I am going to switch consecutively between C1, C2, C3, C4. The fading states I will order. These are the code words. Now I can switch the antennas among the coded bits. Okay, how many antennas do you want to put? Huh? How many we can put? Well, I can put two antennas and calculate the free distances for antenna 1 and antenna 2. Can I? Can you do that exercise now? For m equal to 2 and m equal to 10, you calculate the diversity order for me and the corresponding Hamming weights. Remember the Q function? I want you to tell me the diversity order and the corresponding Hamming weights, or the Euclidean weights, in this case binary. Euclidean Hamming weights are the same from this description of the first event error paths. Given m equal to 2 and m equal to 10. And see if it would obey the singleton term. So how would you do that? Well, if you have two antennas, what would be the fading states here? Alpha 1, next alpha 2, then I can switch in any manner I want, but I can just say alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 1, alpha 2, then count the positions for alpha 1 in which the bits, coded bits differ, count the position in which alpha 2, the coded bits differ. That's that we can do it. Similarly, I can do alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, alpha 4, alpha 5, alpha 6, alpha 7, alpha 8, alpha 8 and alpha 10. And now, or let us say I will choose 8 antennas, m equal to 8. Not 10, but m equal to 8. And calculate the diversity order. Can I get 8th order diversity? If I have 8 antennas from this tree, can I get 8th order diversity? The Hamming distance is?
7.
Okay, let's say I take 7. Okay.
7 you can do.
D3 is 7, I will have 7 antennas. Can you get seventh order diversity? I'll check it out. Well, count it.
Hey, count that's 7 counts.
Yeah, D free is 7, but will you get?
That depends on your switching, right? If you switch appropriately.
Well, you take any switching pattern and show me that you'll get seventh order diversity. Yeah. Singleton bound says 7 or 5? You have 7 antennas. Let's see. 1 plus 7.
7 into 1 minus.
What is it? That is what? Huh?
It's 4.
4?
Yes, sir. 4.
Okay, let's take 8 antennas. 7 antennas, you get 4. And if you take 8? 5. Okay, you show me how much you get. Can you beat the singleton bound? My D3 is 7. With this description, can you beat the singleton bound? It says that it shows as if you said you can get 7th order diversity, right? You tell me if you can get 7th order. You choose any pattern, switching pattern you want. That's in your control, right? At the transmitter. I'll work it out. Just no, this all. This is it. That's it. This is a code that has been designed. This is the first error event. Okay, I have given you that. This is the GSM codec. Okay, and I want you to show if you can beat the singleton bound for any pattern antenna switching you may assume. Try it out. You can choose any pattern you want. For 2, it's easy. You can show. It's obvious that you get second order diversity, and you can also see the corresponding rates. Okay. For 8 antennas and 7 antennas, what do you get? Let's take 7 antennas for the time being. Take 8 antennas. Take 8 antennas. They work out with 8 antennas, not 7. 8 antennas. You choose any pattern you want.
You can get.
Well, you have to count the position in which they differ.
There are 7 positions. Alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 4,
I'll write it. Alpha 1, alpha 2,
alpha 4,
alpha 3,
alpha 4,
alpha 4, alpha 5, alpha 6, alpha 7, alpha 8, then alpha 3, alpha 1 and alpha 2 I'll put. What is that? No, I'll just switch back. I'll just take 8, m equal to 8. Okay? Now, alpha 1, how many positions it differs? 1, 2. Okay? Alpha 1 differs in 2 positions. Alpha 2 differs in 2 positions. Alpha 3, 0 position. Alpha 4, 1 position. Alpha 5,
5 and 6, 0.
huh?
5 and 6, 0.
0. Alpha 6, 0. Alpha 7, 1. Alpha 8, well, there's no alpha 8, is it? How many total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What does singleton bound say? What is the reverse chart?
But if you switch alpha 1, alpha 2 here, there itself,
Huh?
and you use alpha 3, alpha 4 later on, the C9, C10 positions are very high.
What I have now. Show me another switching pattern and select
Here,
some.
alpha 1, alpha 2,
Why is it
alpha
like
3,
this?
alpha 4, then you go back to alpha 1, alpha 2, and then you go to alpha 5, alpha 6, alpha 7, alpha 8.
So you take fixed alpha 3 and alpha 5.
Then you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Well, it's a time varying pattern. What if it starts? Huh? Okay, that's fine. For that event, you get that. Okay. But can it always be ensured? Well, we have to see that, right? There are many error events.
may not give 7.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You have to ensure that for all error events. Okay. See,
In this particular, it can give.
all zero code, there might be 7, but not all code.
so you have to ensure you get this for all the
All those.
you get a diversity order of what is this? 7. Oh, we got 8 inside repeats. You got 7. You have to get 7 for all the error events that are feasible.
For all
Okay.
question code.
So in this case, now let me see. Right here. You input. Okay, what if the error starts at this position? You have this sequence, right? Error can start. Now you have to shift this antenna pattern. You introduce circular shifts, and you have to prove that it works for all circular shifts. Because error, you need not start with alpha 1, alpha 2. Error can start anywhere, right? So you have to shift it for all. You have to prove it for all shifts of these patterns. You have to shift it and prove it. What I mean to say, the error can occur at any point, right? It need not start with alpha 1. It can start here, right? So that means for this pattern, whatever you have, see, there is a time varying nature here. Here you prove it, right? Now you shift this whole thing and prove it works. So error can start with this pattern, alpha 3, alpha 4. And it breaks down right away. This is one possibility. You start with alpha 3, alpha 4, alpha 1, alpha 2, right? Alpha 5, alpha 6, alpha 1, alpha 2. It works. Because error can start at any point. Got it? Error can start. So you cannot say that always this is this is the unique combination. I assign alpha 1, alpha 2 here, but this is moving on, right? Then error can start at any point. Then your construction breaks down. That means you take this and you have to shift it in terms of 1 steps and show that it works for all feasible. So that is the code, that space-time coding that you are doing. The antenna switching itself is the space-time code because code is already fixed. The only thing that you can change is the antenna switching. So the antenna switching is part of the code construction. So you shift this sequence of alphas by 1 and you have to show that you get this much diversity. You shift it by 2, you get this much diversity. So that you have to ensure. Okay? For one case you may get it, but that error event only happens once in a while and that will not govern the pairwise error.
So then do you have to average for all the cases?
Not average, it's a minimum distance. The minimum distance error event. So the one that gives you the for this, you have to always get so much diversity order. He has gotten in one case 7, but in other cases there is only 5. And you have to show, you can show that it won't fall below 5, no matter what you do. You shift them and try it out. It won't fall below 5.
And it won't go about in this particular alpha 2.
Well, you have to check. I mean, I haven't done the exercise.
Sometimes it might go above 5, right? At least you will get 5.
It seems like it gets at least 5.
At least 5.
But it depends. Now, what is the role of interleaving? Now, let's talk about this. What is the role of interleaving? You can have any arbitrary antenna switching pattern that itself acts as an interleaver. What is interleaver? It brings together fades. Interleaver brings together fades. So, we said we switch blockwise, but you interleave and de-interleave such that you want all fading states to be here. So the interleaver itself is part of the code design procedure and you design it such that you ensure so much diversity order. But that you do computer simulation and make sure the interleaver good enough to give you the diversity. See the point? Interleaver kind of separates the fades which occur closely within a block. In alpha F, there are same fade occurs on all bits. Interleaver breaks it. So it has to bring together from M blocks, right? It has to bunch them together at the decoder, interleaver and de-interleaver. You have to think about it, okay? It just brings together fades. You don't want, in other words, the interleaver and deinterleaver should be designed such that you don't want alpha ones in all, let's say 10 or 20 consecutive symbols, and then alpha 2 starts. See the point? You don't want the interleaver and deinterleaver to be designed such that within the length of the error event, it shouldn't remain in the same fading state. If it does, then you defeat the purpose. You want distinct fades to appear within the error event of interest. So now what I would suggest is that you take m equal to 3, 4, 5 and simulate, just simulate once again the MATLAB code with rate half, and you plot the outage probability as well as the pairwise the error rate, frame error rate, and you see if singleton bound is met. Very, very easy to see. Code you can easily extend. You switch between 4 or 5 or 6 fading states, right? Rate remains half. Okay? So that's all we need to do. Now, I think this more or less captures everything, but now let's talk about the phase rotations, where you get this other degree of freedom where you can continuously rotate the fades. They are not distinct states, but they are correlated fading states. Well, more or less the same math applies. You don't want all these fading states to be highly correlated within the coding block. You want them to be as far as distinct as possible. Right? Remember the two antennas we have, alpha 1 plus alpha 2 e to the power of j. Now you can choose Vk to be 0 or pi, and that more or less boils down to present scenario. But if you choose 4 fading states, now you will get correlated phases. If you have 8 phase states, you get correlated fading states. So now you have to ensure that consecutively they are not correlated. Right? So you have to interleave and deinterleave such that one. Yeah. So your job is to make sure that time is enough. Discuss this in the next lecture. You think about it. Now I can create a sequence of fades, right? One simple case is 0 and pi. That boils down to what we have now. Okay. The next question is there any advantage in constructing more fading states, which are sort of correlated, right? Is there any advantage in it? Well, there is an advantage, but you have to be careful. You don't want, let us say you have e to the power j pk coming from 8 PSK constellation, let us say 8 points. Okay. Then you see 8 consecutive correlated fades, and then 8 for QPSK, it is alpha 1 plus alpha 2, alpha 1 plus j, alpha 2, alpha 1 minus alpha 2, alpha 1 minus j, alpha 2. There are QPSK case, there are 4 fade states. Now the question is, how do you distribute them here? How do you design interleaver and deinterleaver? Well, you can go through first 4 and then repeat it. Or you can design such that alpha 1 plus alpha 2 and alpha 1 minus alpha 2 are bunched together. There are several choices. That is the interleaving room. Okay, we'll discuss in the next lecture.
That was the case of time frequency shifting.
Yeah.
But that time modulation, how are they?
What is that?
Frequency shifting can be seen as phase of time.
Right.
So the same can be applied to modulation here also.
We'll discuss next lecture.